So welcome everyone, and again, thank you so much for joining the session today and joining the Vipassana at Home course. So I'm going to record the session, and by the way, I will. It will just be my video, so I'm spotlighting the video for everyone, and no names will pop up if you speak as well. So it'll just be your voice that's in the recording, and the recording is just shared with the people in the course, not publicly. And maybe just a few quick things. So if you've probably used Zoom by now in this age, but we've got the mute button over down here, video button, so mute, and try to keep yourself on mute for the whole time, except if you speak. Video, you're free to choose whether you want to use the video or not. Can be nice to have the video on, to keep more engaged, and so I can also see your face, engage how you're receiving the content. But if you don't feel like it, that's totally fine. And in the bottom right, we also have the chat function. So throughout the session, I'll be asking you a few questions which you can reply in the chat. And yeah, we'll just get started. So we're gonna have a guided meditation, 10 minutes, go through some lecture content, and I'll talk a bit about the technique, and then at the end you can ask some questions. So just begin to settle into your posture, and before you close down the eyes, I just invite you to let your gaze become really kind of wide, so not really looking at anything specific anymore, but more sensing the space in front of you. And also allow your body to start settling into your posture. So your hands can be on your lap or on your knees, whether you're sitting in a chair or on a cushion. Just allow your foundation, so your legs, your hips, just to really settle and sink into the ground. And the spine is kind of gently being pulled upwards towards the ceiling, almost by the tip of the head. And then the rest of your body relaxes. So your arms are fully relaxed. Your face is fully relaxed, your jaw. And like this, you can start to feel the natural flow of your respiration, the natural flow of your breathing, however it is at the moment. If it's fast, it's fast. If it's slow, it's slow. If it's deep, it's deep. If it's shallow, it's shallow. And just let it be however it is. And you can also feel the different points of contact where your skin is either touching the ground, the cushion, or where your body is touching itself, like where your hands are resting on your knees or lap. Just kind of go through these points of contact, all the ones that you can find. Maybe even noticing the point of contact of the tongue inside the mouth. And you can close down the eyes here if you haven't already. So traditionally in each more intensive meditation period, we take the 5 precepts, which are basically 5 kind of guidelines for how we should conduct ourselves in our daily lives. And following these really helps to support the meditation practice because we have more peace of mind, and with more peace of mind, we are less distracted during our meditation and more easily to focus. So the first precept, and you can just kind of listen to this and just reflect for yourself how you want to keep these for the next 10 days. So the first precept is abstaining from killing or abstaining from taking life, even that of very small insects. The second one is abstaining from taken what is not given. So abstaining from stealing. This prevents us from acting on greed. Thirdly, we've got abstaining from wrong speech, harmful speech, and lying. And fourthly, abstaining from sexual misconduct. So not using sex to harm ourselves or others. And lastly, abstaining from the use of intoxicating substances. So in general, that would be alcohol, other drugs, because these tend to cloud the mind. And in this course, we're trying to see clearly, we're trying to see the mind and ourselves as we really are, which we can't really do very well if there's different influences on the system. And yeah, abstaining from marijuana would also be helpful for this if you are using it every day, maybe just trying to reduce it. So continuing to sit here and just letting these 5 precepts sink in. And now I just invite you to bring to mind why you are here. Why are you doing this course? What makes you spend your Saturday listening and coming to this lecture? What do you want from meditation? It's important for you to know this. Maybe that changes every day, but it's important to ask yourself this question. And now I invite you to just kind of connect to the feeling of not being alone in this course. So there's many others here. Some of them are live, some of them will be watching the recording, but we've got people from all over the world, from India, Singapore, Australia, Germany, South America, America, all over the world, who are just like you, coming and committing to these 10 days to be better, to work on themselves. So we're really part of a community, part of the Sangha, as we call it in Buddhism, the spiritual community. So don't feel that you are ever alone on this journey. Okay, so you can gently open your eyes again. So again, welcome. Hope you settled in a little bit to your body. I invite you to use these lectures as a bit of a meditation as well. So really, we can meditate at any point in our lives, not just during our formal meditation practice, but we can use anything as our object of meditation. So in this case, during this lecture, trying to really listen and listen with your whole body, and notice when you start to get distracted, when you start to think about something else. Continuously redirect your attention and try to be alert while staying relaxed in listening to this. This will be a good meditation. Maybe I'll say a few words about myself before we get into the content. But yeah, so a bit about me. I grew up in Germany, but I'm from a kind of German Singaporean background, and was always interested in high intensity sports and kind of experiencing my mind through mainly movement and sports. At 18 years old, I moved to Australia to study economics and finance. So I studied and also started working in economics and finance. And parallel to this, I was also discovering a bit the world of meditation, yoga. I first started meditating in university, and then while I was working full-time in finance, I had already gone to my first Vipassana retreats, and really was kind of quite dedicated because I felt how much this was helping me. This also helped with my skin problems. It helped a lot with my stress levels, anxiety levels, and so I was kind of hooked very early on. And then I decided to pursue meditation a bit more seriously. So during COVID, I stopped my finance job and moved to Thailand, where I am now since about 2 years. And yeah, exploring different movement practices, contact improvisation dance, free diving, as well as deepening my Vipassana meditation practice. And so currently I'm actually staying at a temple near Chiang Mai in north of Thailand. And yeah, basically meditating and kind of dedicating full time to this for the next few months. My intention for guiding this, I've been doing this for about a year now, is really much more to hold the space and hold the container for the practice to teach yourself. So I'm not so much trying to, teach you and give you the answers, or this is how to live your life, this is how to do things. It's much more I'm creating the container for you to sit 2 hours a day, and through your own experience, through experiencing your own mind, your own body, we're all different, so it's important for us to experience ourselves. You will start to build the wisdom, the intuition to help yourself, guide yourself. Yes, good. Okay. So this course really emphasizes the practice of meditations. The practice is really where you train yourself. We sit 2 hours a day because when we sit down to meditate, and it's more of a simple thing to do, there's not so much things happening. Usually we're just running around, but when we meditate, we sit down. So we're kind of simplifying the way our experience is going. There's not as many inputs. And with that, it's kind of like a laboratory, or learning how to drive a car. We first drive in a car park or something where there's not so much happening. And so we can start to figure out how this thing works, how the steering wheel works, how the gears work. And so it's the same thing with our minds. When things are a bit more simple, we can actually start to see how my mind works, how my body works. So when I get bored, why do I get bored? What is the process of getting bored? How does boredom end? How does boredom start? Same thing with irritation, restlessness, sadness, happiness. We can start to see how these experiences happening and how our emotions get formed and pass away. And through that, we learn about how we function. So I would just love to ask you a quick question. So please answer. What do you want from meditation? So why are you here? And maybe write maximum 3 words. Maybe just 1 or 2 words is enough. What is it that you want from this practice? Control the monkey mind, greater peace. Calmness, focus, and manifestation. Easier access to compassion, less pain, better myself, compassion, clarity of mind. I'd like to be slower to react and to respond instead. Wonderful. Being present, being in the moment. Better understanding and control this amazing faculty that we have. Wonderful. Thoughtful intentions and actions. Great. Clarity, increased consciousness, mindfulness, letting go of negativities. Okay, wonderful. So we have a lot of different reasons, but kind of all of them are similar in a way that they are all to do with our mind. Everything you guys listed here, clarity, compassion, mindfulness, less negativities, better thinking patterns, these are all things that we have in our mind. So you must think, yeah, maybe you don't have enough of these things at the moment. So this is really where the practice will help you, because as we start to observe, we actually know very little about how we function, as how our mind functions. We continue to go through different we actually have no control about the different emotions that you go to. Can you just decide tomorrow morning to wake up very happy or to wake up very sad? Probably not. Maybe you can kind of incline towards that, but ultimately you don't really have control. So we're just trying to notice what are the different conditions that give rise to certain states of mind. What precedes a state of mind of clarity? What precedes a state of mind of mindfulness, of less negativities? What do I usually do when a lot of negative thought arises in my mind? Typically, we're quite blind to how we make ourselves suffer. So we're a bit like Mr. Bean, who kind of, this Mr. Bean comic where he is always walking along the street and then he always falls into this dark hole. He always keeps falling into this dark hole, which is very funny because he keeps doing that. But we're very much the same. We keep falling for the same things. And so with this practice, we're just trying to learn a bit more and try to maybe walk around those holes. Great. So just have a little slide. Okay. So during this course, we'll be learning the three main things. The first one that we talked about today is the precepts. So this is kind of really forms the foundation of our mindfulness and our Vipassana practice, to have the right intention behind practicing. So why do we come to the practice? If we come to the practice from a place of greed or a place of hatred, anger, delusion, we typically won't practice in the correct way, because our mindfulness, our concentration will be clouded by this greed or anger. And so it's really important to keep these precepts, because it kind of forms this foundation of we're using this practice to not to harm ourselves and others, and to kind of help ourselves and help others. So this is a very important thing. It's kind of the first thing that we have to do, and it's also the most difficult thing that we have to practice throughout our whole life. There's a lot of Zen teachers, etc., where there's also Vipassana teachers, where there's been a lot of scandals, because this is really the most difficult thing to live a moral life. Then we'll be doing two different practices. The first one is Anapanasati, that directly translates to mindfulness of breathing. We'll be doing that for the first 4 days of the course. And this is where we're focusing on our breath. And this is really kind of a concentration practice. So a practice to develop the quality of calm in our minds and the ability to focus on what we choose to focus on. In the second part of the course, from day 5 to 10, we'll be going to the Vipassana practice. And this is really where we start to build mindfulness and wisdom and insight into the way and the nature of our mind and the way this whole system works. So the reason that we have to practice anapanasati or concentration meditation first is because our untrained mind, maybe you've already got a bit of practice and stuff, but typically our untrained mind is very, very messy. It's basically, there's so many thoughts happening all the time, so many inputs. You think about lunch, you think about what to do tomorrow, you think about this, that, then your leg starts hurting, then you feel bored, then you feel restless. There's so much stuff happening, and so it's quite a mess. So here's a picture of kind of this messy room, which represents the mind. Everything's a bit chaotic, and in this mess, we can't really see what is what. We can't really have clarity into how this whole thing works. So what we're doing is we are just going to clean this up a bit, let things settle down a little bit. So through focusing on our breath, we just start to already bring some concentration and some calm into the mind. So we're kind of cleaning up a little, sorting things out, removing some of the gunk, the dirt, and then we see there's a bit more space here, a bit more. Now I can actually start seeing what is what. And that is the point where we start doing our Vipassana practice, because our Vipassana practice is basically like, sorting out what we want, what we still need, examining these different objects and how we relate to them. Do I like to have this magazine on my couch? Is it helpful or not? But we start to actually look at the things that have influence of us. And then later in daily life, we can start to choose what we keep, what we don't keep, over time, of course. And I have another question for you. Stop sharing. So, how would you currently rate your ability to focus on what you choose to focus on? So maybe you experienced that in the meditation yesterday. How would you rate your ability to focus on your breath or other things, to focus on work or sport or whatever? 1 is the worst, 5 is the effortlessness. So we've got a lot of range, 2, 3, 5, I guess that's a 2.5, 1, 2, 3, 3, 2.5, maybe 7 out of 10 is a 4, 2, 2. It comes and goes. Yeah, it's always changing. Nice, windy. 4, 3, 2. So a whole range of different artists, but yeah, I feel there hasn't been a 5, so it's good, because otherwise this course wouldn't be useful for you. But for me also this always changes. Some days almost impossible for my mind to focus. There's so much restlessness, so much stuff going on. Other times it's completely effortless and easy. But definitely through this practice, I feel that faculty has improved, the faculty of consistently and clearly being able to focus on what we choose to focus on. If you think about it, when you sit down to meditate, the level of your distractedness is really also reflecting the level of distractedness in your everyday life. In meditation, we are just kind of seeing it more intentionally, but if you're going to have a very restless mind in meditation, you're likely also very restless in real life. You're just kind of jumping from different things or stimuli to each other. And through this systematic practice of meditation, it's a bit like we're going to the gym. We are lifting the weight of attention, and we can really elevate our baseline level of focus. So our baseline level of focus is how easy it is for you to focus without any conscious effort at all. And why is this important? Because really, if you really examine this, not a single aspect of our human experience is not influenced by our level of presence or focus. So even if it's something, there's some obvious things like working where your level of focus becomes very obvious because you're being more or less productive. But even in things like a relationship, the level of presence that you can bring to a conversation and to really listen to another being and relate to that person is very crucial, because if you're constantly distracted, checking your phone, thinking about other things, you're not going to really be there for that person. It's the same thing when you're doing exercise, when you're going for a walk in the park. If you are really present with that walk in the park and present with the sounds of the nature, the light filtering through the trees, that's going to be a much more peaceful experience than if you're constantly worrying about their stuff. With a high level of presence and focus, we can really it's impossible to be bored. It's kind of like having a permanent flow state, if you know this term, flow state. So when boredom is just a lack of kind of paying attention to our experience. When we get bored, it's usually because we kind of discard experience. I know this, I've seen this already. But if we really start to pay attention, even things which are very painful or boring usually can become extremely fulfilling experiences. So just to end that, the concentration practice will only really get you so far, and that's why we're practicing also Vipassana later on, because our concentration practice helps us focus on things, but our concentration practice also makes it possible for us to distract ourselves. So if something keeps bothering me, tapping my shoulder, if I'm really good at focusing on something else, I can completely ignore this. But then when I stop focusing on this tapping is going to be as annoying as it was before. And so later in Vipassana, we try to go directly to the root of why we feel dissatisfaction and really look at what annoys us very deeply. But we'll talk about that on Wednesday. Okay. So another question for you. From a scale of 1 to 5, how easy will it be for you to do the 1 hour meditation in the morning and evening? 1 is almost impossible, 5 is extremely easy. So we've got some 4s, 2s, 4s, 2, 3, 3, 2.5, 3, 2.5, 3. So yeah, good. Most people are in this kind of mid-range, which is great. That's where we want to be. It needs to be challenging, but not impossible. And yeah, probably the number that you're answering in this question is very much related to what number you answered in the last question. It's not 2 hours a day is actually quite difficult to do. This is not an easy thing to do, 2 hours a day, especially just sitting meditation. So it's it's going to be challenging, but it's part of this is also to build your discipline, etc. So I believe if all of you apply yourself, you can definitely get through it, even if you answered the number 2. But what are some of the things that typically bother us during meditation. So we'll have a look at that now. So there's this thing called the 5 hindrances. These are, especially in the kind of beginner to intermediate stages of meditation, these are the things that really prevent us from practicing properly because they keep coming up. And I just want to talk about these because it's nice for you to be aware of them, and nice for you to be aware that this happens to pretty much everyone. So it's not, you might be thinking, oh, yesterday was so difficult, this meditation thing isn't for me. Don't worry about it. This is the nature of the mind, the nature of monkey mind. Everyone goes through these stages, and don't worry about it, accept what comes. And over time, it does get better. So the first one is kind of sensual desires or liking, craving, greed. So this can be related to you're sitting in meditation and you just can't stop thinking about what's for dinner or what you're going to do tomorrow. But can also be directly related to the meditation and be something like, oh, like I want to feel more peaceful. I don't feel peaceful right now. I really want to feel peaceful. This kind of wantingness. The second one is disliking or aversion or even hatred. So this can be something I'm thinking of outside, like a person that I really don't like, something that had happened that I don't like, something I have to do tomorrow, or something which is happening right now. Oh, I really hate sitting here. I hate this. I hate my mind right now. You know, this kind of strong aversion, irritation, anger that can come up. And the third thing is excessive worry or overthinking. So sometimes we get into these states of mind where there's just so many thoughts popping in our head. We're worrying about this, worrying about that, worrying about how our meditation is. And this creates a lot of restlessness. You can observe this in the mind, but also in the body. You'll be very fidgety. You'll want to move every minute. Maybe you'll feel some anxiety, some discomfort in the chest, belly. Also very, very normal. The other thing is if we are very drowsy or lazy. So maybe we start to sit down in meditation and it's like, oh, this is like so boring. I just want to fall asleep. Maybe you start then lying down and you start getting really drowsy and you just not applying yourself at all. And yeah, this can totally happen. And maybe you even fall asleep, which is okay. Don't worry about it. But we are trying to train ourselves to not do this. And the last one is this very tricky one, which comes in a lot, and this came a lot for me as well, is the doubt that comes in about not only doubt about the meditation or if this technique is actually working. Like maybe you're thinking, oh, my mind is so confused and restless, like I don't think this practice is good for me. Maybe doubting my own abilities. Oh, maybe it's good for others, but I'm just not good enough for this practice. I can't do this. Yeah, doubt. And with doubt, usually there's some expectation. I expect my meditation to be like this, or I expect to feel peaceful and calm when I sit down to meditate, or I expect myself to be super mindful. But all of these things are impermanent. All of these things come and go, and that's what we're not so much trying to go to a certain state in this meditation. We're really trying to observe our mind in all states of mind. Yeah, so I'll also post this in the group today just to have a reminder, but keep these kind of things in mind. And when you notice that something is becoming imbalanced and going very far into any one of these, just bring yourself back to the breath. And if it ever gets so strong that you really can't meditate at all, it's better to kind of maybe stand up and shake it out, then sit down again. But yeah, don't worry, they happen to all of us. It's really the nature of our mind, and over time they start to get less and less power over you. Yes. Okay. So another question for you. So this question is about the nature of you as a person. Do you tend to be more towards the kind of excessive effort, trying, discipline side of things? Or do you tend to be more towards the too relaxed, lazy, easygoing side of non-doing kind of side of things when you approach anything in your life, whether that's work or relationships or yeah, so one is being very relaxed and minimalistic, 5 is being kind of effort is the way to go, and with more effort I can achieve more. 3, 4, 2, 3.5, 3, and 1. Wow, very chilled out person. 3, 3. Okay. 4. Yeah, it's interesting to ask this question to ourselves and observe also throughout the day what we tend to do. I'm definitely a person, maybe it's gotten a little bit better with meditation, but I definitely was a person who approached my life and meditation with a lot of effort and doing. I remember my first meditation retreat where I had to focus on my breath. I really was like, okay, I'm not gonna have a single thought and be super focused. And I was just like trying really hard to do it. Wow, and I built so much tension in my body. And after 8 hours or something doing that, I completely burnt out and felt very demotivated. But that was a good lesson to learn. So yes, this is good that you already have some awareness of how you are as a person. And this is something that you can really also examine in your meditation, how you tend to approach the task of focusing on your breath. So there's the story of so the Buddha kind of he gave us the middle way. So the way he attained enlightenment was kind of, first he was in the palace and enjoying more the sensual pleasures. He had everything he wanted. Then his second part of his journey was more asceticism, so really going into extremes of deprivation. He became an ascetic monk, and he, was eating just a grain of rice every day, trying to hold his breath very long, doing all these ascetic practices. And then finally he kind of eased away from that, and then he found this middle way where he kept the mind relaxed and happy. He was sitting under the shade of a Bodhi tree, and Sujata brought him some rice milk, or rice porridge, which he ate, and then in this relaxed, open state, he attained his enlightenment. So what does this tell us? It tells us that the mind and the way that we can best work with the mind is by being relaxed but alert. So we don't want to be too lazy, non-doing, because then we just dream off and sit down and dream for an hour. But we also don't want to be too tight and effortful and okay, I'm going to catch every single breath, because then we build a lot of tension in our whole mind-body system, and this will just backfire for you in the long term. And I can speak from my own experience from that. It's almost like we have a guitar, with a string, with 3 strings. The first string, if the string is too loose, it will just not really play a sound. It will just kind of wobble. If the string is too tight, we play it and the string breaks. But if the string is just tight enough, but not too loose, it plays a nice sound. So it's the same thing with our meditation practice. We need to find what the middle way is for ourselves. And this really changes every day. It changes depending on who you are as a person, your tendencies. It changes. It's different in the morning than in the evening. It's different even within one meditation session. At the beginning, you might be really sleepy, so you need a little bit more effort. Then you get a bit more tense throughout. You need to ease up a little bit more. But this is really something that you learn through the practice. So I encourage you to be aware of this, how much you're applying yourself, and try to modulate. If you feel you're getting too tense, too much doing, just ease up a little bit, relax, feel like you're sitting back more and chilling. If you're falling asleep or thinking a lot, then try to rouse a little bit more effort. Okay. The last thing that I want to talk to you about today is this meditation thing that we're doing is, on the surface, it seems like quite a solitary practice. We kind of do it by ourselves. We sit down to meditate. We close off everything. During this course, I've also asked you to kind of, have less social commitments, etc. That way you will, have more time to kind of be with yourself, observe yourself. But what we are really doing in meditation is we're not just doing it for ourselves, but we're also doing this for other people. So the way we live our lives, if we are not careful about it, we are constantly in self-centered identification loops. I think 99.9% of our thoughts are about ourselves, for me also. But with this practice of mindfulness and meditation, we can start to notice these patterns and maybe create a little bit more space around them. And within that space, we actually start to notice, there's other people around us. There's this person, maybe I can help them right now. You can start to ask yourself, what does this person need right now? And you'll find that as you start to become more aware of your own thinking, and when you go into your own planning, thinking, worrying, anxiety, and just to notice those things and coming back to the breath, with the body, and that you will start to notice more others. So there's this nice Buddhist saying, if you all kind of hold up your hand right now, and you kind of cover the palm of your hand with your other hand. So a lot of the time we think of ourselves as individuals. We think, okay, I'm this index finger, and there's these other individuals in my life. But what we start to notice when we start to kind of zoom out a little bit more and create more space in our mind, create more peace, we actually notice we are actually somehow a bit more interrelated than I thought we were, whether that is through empathy or emotions, or nothing we do really is just impacting ourselves. We're constantly influencing. There's a big web of interrelatedness, interbeingness. As we start to notice that these 5 fingers are not only part of the same hand, they are also a part of this body connected to another 5 fingers and 10 toes. So this is one way to look at this. We are through the meditation practice, we are really observing how we are interrelated, and everything is constantly relying on each other. So the more fulfilled we feel, the more happiness we have, the more free we are, and the more time and energy and attention, presence we have for others, to help others. And this personal fulfillment really spills over to those around us. So I invite you to close down the eyes and just settle into stillness. And feeling the body and any sounds going on around you. So we're going to do a quick review what we learned today. You learned about the 5 precepts. These 5 precepts really form the foundation for our practice, the practice of morality, really underpins the intention behind our meditation. It's important to keep these precepts, to have peace of mind so that we can meditate. And in this course, we emphasize the practice of meditation. We do have these lectures, but the most important thing is doing the meditation 2 hours a day and applying yourself and doing the technique properly. Besides the right intention or morality, we are going to practice concentration meditation and later Vipassana meditation. Concentration meditation to kind of help our mind and our focus settle down a bit so that we can later in the mindfulness or Vipassana meditation start to sort out and see how this whole mind-body thing works, this whole mind-body system works, so that you can be free from the mind-body system, so that you can make your choices rather than be ruled by your habits and stop walking into the holes. Our level of concentration or ability to focus on what we choose really isn't just a skill that it's good for our meditation, but it's also good for every situation in our life, whether that's relating, whether that's work or sports or music. You also learned about the 5 hindrances, different things that can block your meditation practice, that you can waste a lot of energy on here. So it's important to be aware of them, and when you notice them happening, just come back to the meditation object, just come back to the simplicity of paying attention to the breath. And over time, these will start to have less hold on you. And lastly, we also learned about the middle way and kind of adjusting day by day, moment by moment, how much you are doing versus non-doing, how much alertness versus relaxation you bring in. You want to stay in a nice zone of the learning zone. We want to stay in a zone where we're a little bit challenged, but not so much to ever get intense. And we do this practice not only for ourselves, but it's also really a social endeavor, a practice to help those around us. Okay, so ask you if you bring to mind any questions that came up during this, whether it's about the practice, anything logistical related to the course, or anything about what I just said. And yeah, you're welcome to write them in the chat, or maybe just raise your hand. There's this kind of raise hand function on the bottom right where I'll call on you and you can speak. How do you deal with leg pain? That's a good question, Devansh. So leg pain can come up a lot, especially if you're not used to sitting for longer periods of time. If there's some leg discomfort, that's okay. That's what we expect. If there's some mild discomfort, maybe a little bit of falling asleep or something, that's totally fine. Maybe even slight pain, but we don't want this to get too intense. So if it's getting very intense and if you feel that it's really not good, you can switch the posture. So for example, I sit kind of like this, but then maybe I'll change the leg on top, or even kind of put the feet in front of each other. You can also kind of put some cushions underneath your knees, kind of here, which helps with the knee pain. Importantly, with posture also, if you are sitting on the ground, it's nice to elevate the hips slightly. So maybe something harder generally works better than something softer, but having something underneath the hips, so that, and even like bringing the flesh of the buttocks slightly back, so your hips are slightly tilted forwards. We don't really want to be rounding like this, which makes it more effortless. And another option is to sit on a chair. Yes, so if you have some issues with joints, ligaments, some injuries, you are also permitted to sit on a chair and not so strict. Yeah, you can have your feet flat on the floor. I would just recommend to have your back away from the backrest because it's very easy to fall asleep or fall into drowsiness if we're kind of too relaxed, which is also why we don't want to meditate if we're lying down, because I guarantee you will fall asleep or be very dreamy if you try to meditate like this. If you're on a chair, it's also actually nice to bring something underneath or just in the back of just so the pelvis can be tilted forwards and sitting like this. Yeah. Okay. What else is there? Is it okay to move? I find it very difficult to stay complete still, even without pain. If you don't have any pain, it's better to stay still. But of course, as we're starting, it's okay to move a few times here and there. But I invite you, when you do move, try to do so very slowly and mindfully. So don't just try to don't make it a habitual kind of, now I'm uncomfortable, I'll move. Now I'm uncomfortable, I'll move. Like fidgeting, but try to, okay, be very intentional about it. So, okay, I feel discomfort. Now I'm going to move, and then very slowly you can move and try to keep your attention with your breath as you do so, because if you move too much out of reaction, it will disrupt your concentration a lot, and it will be very difficult to try to go deeper into the focus if you keep moving. And the body always reflects the mind, so if the mind is more restless, and the body will be more restless, so the body also influences the mind. So if you keep a more still body, it's more likely that the mind will be still. What else is there? I want to maybe share, if there's no questions, I want to share one more quick analogy that's nice to keep in mind. Typically, the things that we have in our life are more like we can directly see the input that they're a bit more like engineering. So I'm building a car, and I can see how the car is built, and with more effort, better resources, I can build that car faster. But meditation is a bit more like gardening than like engineering. So when we're gardening and we are gardening a plant, and when we are planting a plant, the only thing we can do to make the plant grow is keep watering it, make sure that it's getting enough light, make sure it's sheltered, keep away the insects from it. But I can't make the plant grow faster by pulling on it or something like this. So it's the same thing with when we meditate. We can't make our meditation more focused and more peaceful directly. We don't really have that influence. All we can do is provide the right conditions. I can be disciplined, I can sit for an hour, I can try to move less, I can remove distractions, and through that, the mind will kind of flower and grow when it's ready. So it's much more a process of nature than. So I invite you to kind of think about that and have that in mind when you meditate. So it's also it's important not to have too many expectations. Like, I expect this to be peaceful, I expect this to be like this, because it's a natural process. Does my short sleeping cycles would affect my meditation? You can experiment for yourself how your sleep affects your meditation. I definitely recommend 8 hours a day if you can. But yeah, I'm not really sure what you mean by short sleeping cycles. So Jal asks, if it's not possible to sit 2 hours, then can I lie down on the floor? I prefer that you sit in the chair than lying down. If you lie down, you will fall asleep very, very likely. If you do need to lie down because of injuries, do so maybe to rest for 5 minutes and then try to sit up again, or sit in a chair. But yeah, if you maybe you can experiment with that. So this is what I mean by your own practice teaching you. Go and lie down and see how effective your meditation will be in terms of how well you can focus. And you'll quickly find that you'll be very dreamy and not focusing. Yes. Okay. Is there anything else? Otherwise, we can conclude the meeting. Devansh, I'd recommend you to try and go to sleep a bit earlier if you can. Okay. So, Devansh, if you want to chat about your sleep, and anyone else who wants to talk about anything more specific, I'll stay here for a few more minutes. But otherwise, good luck with the guided meditation tonight. And tomorrow we have a group meditation where we'll meditate together and a bit of time for Q&A. But and yeah, you can always WhatsApp me any questions in personal message, and I'll answer them in the group if they're relevant. But yeah, thank you so much for joining today. Sadhu, and enjoy the rest of your day.